Yo, what's up? It's your boy DJ Dad, homie, and I'm finna drop this one on Trump. You know what I'm saying? Everybody been saying Trump is the new, Trump is like 50, Trump is like Pac, he getting shot, you know what I'm saying? He raising his fist, he doing this, he doing that. Man, it's whatever, bruh. We gonna react to this Professor Black Truth, man. But while we checking this out, the Black Truth, man, I want y'all to hit those links in the description, man. Check out the new merch, man. Felons can be president. I want all my real ones, all the smart ones. We all got somebody thorough in the hood, someone to stand up cat. We need to put money behind our peoples, man. It don't matter if you got a felony. It don't matter what you been through, man. That's the only thing I'm learning from this whole Trump thing. You know what I'm saying? You could catch cases. You could get shot. You could still run for president. You know what I'm saying? So felons for president, you heard me? And y'all go ahead and check out that merch, you know what I'm saying? We're going to check out this Professor Black Truth and see what he got to say about it.
Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the moment of truth. For all you Biden bots out there, just when you thought it was safe to go back to the ballot box, the Orange Man has finally resurfaced, this time at the Republican National Convention, and he was there to make a special announcement that at long last he's finally selected his court jester, vice presidential running mate, and it's going to be Senator J.D. Vance. Talk about the right tool for the job. Trump made sure to have a huge bandage covering his ear where he was barely grazed. He wanted to make sure the cameras all saw that. He wanted to draw attention to it because these are going to be portrayed as his MAGA war wounds, which is certainly the way that the white right wingnuts are going to try to portray it. This is Donald Trump having survived battle, when the reality is he was just the latest in a never-ending string of targets by these mass shooters who, by the way, fit the same profile as Donald Trump and his sons, which explains why neither Trump nor any of these other politicians seriously want to do anything about them, but I digress. So Donald Trump has chosen J.D. Vance to be his vice presidential running mate, and I guess he's going to ride this MAGA horse to glory. It's to be expected that he would choose Vance. Vance's name has been bandied about, at least in some small circles in the past, as a long-shot presidential wannabe. But the guy has a lot of the same issues that Mike Pence had. No charisma. He's someone whose political career has pretty much topped out. He's made it to the Senate, but nobody sees him as having any potential past that, not in any real terms. So he needs Trump far more than Trump needs him, and that's exactly how the Orange Man likes it. Someone who'll knuckle under faster than you can say MAGA. J.D. Vance used to be a fierce Trump critic. He was one of the never-Trumpers. He called the Orange Man everything from a moral disaster to America's Hitler. But it would appear that all that's been forgiven. I suppose J.D. Vance managed to bow, scrape, bend over, and grab the ankles sufficiently for Donald Trump. Now, I'm not entirely sure what kind of vetting process that Trump had for Vance, but since he has so many of the same qualities as Mike Pence does, one has to wonder. Just goes to show that Trump's instincts for choosing people who are not a threat for leadership against him is more important than whether they're perfectly loyal. And we all know how much loyalty apparently matters to Trump. I don't know who made the decision that this guy should be the VP. About the only thing I can think of is Vance used to be in the Marines. And Trump, who never served himself, likes to surround himself with military men because it makes him feel macho. It's like the woman who's skinny or at least a little bit plump, and she likes to have fat friends around her so that she can feel a little bit slimmer as a result because she knows that she's not as big as her unattractive obese buddies. That's what Trump likes to do when he has all these military men around him. He thinks that it makes him look macho by osmosis, especially because he's supposed to be the commander-in-chief. And somewhere Ron DeSantis is crying in his beer. Oh, all of that bootlicking that he did, all that butt kissing that he did, all of the stupid political ads with his kids reading books to them about how great Donald Trump is. He just knew that all of his stupid performative extremism would make him president. He would stand out from the pack, or at the very least, he would create the impression that the Republicans need him, especially Trump. That was the idea. He wants to let all these guys know, you need me. See how much attention I get on Fox News. You need me. Well, the voters in the Republican primaries clearly didn't think that they needed him, and Donald Trump has gone ahead and put the final nail in that particular coffin. You had DeSantis, who was attempting to play the game of appealing to Trump, and it didn't work. But then again, as I've explained multiple times about DeSantis and all of this shameless sucking up to Trump that he was doing, DeSantis is ambitious. And Trump hates having ambitious people around him because that's competition. And as you saw with Mike Pence, a man who didn't have much ambition at all and even less brains, he would eventually go ahead and turn on the orange man. And that's why Trump doesn't like having ambitious people around him. That's some of that stuff that Roy Cohn taught him back in the day. Don't let ambitious people be around you because they'll try to find a way to cut you off at the knees. Actually, I think that's a form of projection by Trump because he certainly knows what he would do if he had to play second fiddle to anyone. He'd be just looking for the opportunity to cut their throats and then blame them for it. But somebody else who also lost the vice presidential sweepstakes, Vivek Ramaswamy, there's another idiot. He thought that he would put himself in the running by sucking up to Trump again, just like J.D. Vance until recently. Ramaswamy also used to take pot shots at Trump. That is, until he thought that he was going to position himself in the right-wing machine and make a name for himself, but that didn't work either. See, that's what all those clowns were competing for during the Republican so-called primaries. All of them were competing to see who was going to be Trump's running mate. They all knew that none of them had a snowball's chance in hell of actually getting the nomination. It was going to be Trump no matter what. Nikki Haley got completely passed over, but that's okay because I hear that J.D. Vance is married to an Indian woman, so the Republicans have their faux diversity representation there. Now, with all this been going on with the quote-unquote assassination attempt against Trump, the RNC is having their once every 4 years Clavern meeting. Their presidential convention. And nowhere do they mention anything about black people naturally. Now, it would be one thing if they had made assurances to the black community, but just weren't broadcasting it to the world. But the Republicans didn't even do that much. You see, this is why black people, especially those who consider themselves to be black conservatives, whatever the hell they're trying to conserve, they need to understand elections are and must be transactional. Have you ever noticed that about the shills on both the white left and the white right? Or their little bootlicks who they send? Doesn't matter if they claim to be Republicans or Democrats. Everybody says the same thing. Black people shouldn't be demanding anything for our vote. And when we do stick to our guns and make demands, the bootlick shills on both the left and the right sit there and tell us that, oh, Donald Trump's already done all these great things for black people. Oh, Biden's already done all these great things for black people, etc. They all operate out of the exact same playbook. Elections are transactional. For all the GOP shills and plants who lurk around here, I want you to know, what has Trump or anyone else in the GOP put on the table for us? What is it that they're saying we're going to get? While I'm sure that some of these wannabe white supremacist adjacent groups out here are going to catch some hell from a second Trump administration, the reality is black empowerment is based on what we're going to get. So the entire Republican presidential convention is just a big nothing burger. Nobody's going to convince us that we're getting anything because the Republicans made it very clear they're not doing anything for black people. Hence, why should we do anything for them? I say that for the idiots who you see occasionally in the comments claiming that I'm a vote for Trump. What for, stupid? Now, getting back to the vice presidential sweepstakes, the point that I was trying to get across is that when you look at the vetting and selection process for the vice presidential candidates, it's the same for both parties. The VP running mates get chosen based on whether or not the candidate thinks that this person can help them connect with voters that the campaign struggles to get support from. That's the reason why Barack Obama made sure to choose an older white guy as his running mate. That's the reason why Trump, the loudmouth, racist womanizer, made sure to choose a soft-spoken religious kook like Mike Pence to be his running mate. This is why Biden chose a half-Asian woman who identifies as black to be his running mate. The vice president is meant to try to capture votes that the presidential candidate may not necessarily be able to attract. And by the way, on a side note, Alec Baldwin's white privilege got his homicide case thrown out. Now Trump's insurance policy, Judge Eileen Cannon, has dismissed the classified documents case against him. And she's claiming that the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, was not a Justice Department prosecutor, rather he's a private citizen. And when Merrick Garland appointed him to handle the documents case, she says that basically the funding and the appointment of Jack Smith was illegal. So she seemed to be siding with Trump's lawyers' contentions that Merrick Garland couldn't appoint a private citizen to be a special prosecutor without getting Senate confirmation first. Now, that's picking a particularly small nit. That's some real pseudo-legal nitpicking going on there. But everybody understands that basically this is all political, on both sides, by the way. And while Jack Smith has vowed to appeal this ruling, the problem for the Democrats is this ruling makes it impossible for this case to come to trial before the election, which is what the Democrats really wanted. And if it does go before the Supreme Court, that means it's going to be heard by a gang of Trump flunkies who he put on the bench. And they will throw it out if not severely undermine it, because that's what the Federalist Society flunkies were put on the Supreme Court to do. Don't get me wrong, I don't have a dog in this fight, of course, and you shouldn't either. But merely as spectators who look at how these dirty dealings go down, this Judge Cannon woman, she's gone over the top trying to prove how much of a right-wing nut she is. Basically, she's using the Ron DeSantis playbook, shameless performative extremism, trying to audition to be on the short list for whatever right-wing extremist becomes president in the future. That's what Judge Cannon's trying to do. She's trying to build up her little old resume to show how she will totally dismiss the law just to rubber stamp whatever the white right wants. So if Trump does get reelected, maybe a Supreme Court vacancy will open up, probably Clarence Thomas. And I guess that Judge Cannon's thinking that she's going to slide right in there. So in political terms, at least for Joe Biden and company, slowly but surely the political clock is inching toward 12 midnight. As for Trump and Vance, between Judge Cannon's ruling and the quote-unquote assassination attempt against Trump, basically he's been able to hit the reset button on his campaign. And so far, it seems to be working for now. He hasn't experienced any big bump in the polls, but that's not the point. The point was to solidify his support, to galvanize his base, and that has certainly happened. Biden and his friends have been forced to tone down their rhetoric, but then again, after their 4 straight years of saying that a second Trump presidency would be to usher in a third Reich in America, that rhetoric hasn't worked. What Biden needs to be doing is catering to his base, principally the black vote, but he understands that this isn't going to be like 2008 or even 2012. The black vote has been burned by Biden. He had 4 years to solidify our support so that he would be ready for re-election. Instead, he and trash like Rahm Emanuel and the congressional black talkers pursued a political strategy of trying to manufacture a new political base for the Democrats. One cobbled together from non-black constituencies like the feminists. That's why they made such a big deal about abortion. Illegal aliens. That's why they're talking about amnesty. The LGBT community. That's why they were so eager to get through that gay marriage law. And of course, they would also try to appeal to socially moderate Republicans, i.e. casual racists. The Democrats' entire goal for how they were going to win re-election was to put together a Frankenstein monster of a voting bloc, one that would enable the Democrats to retain office without having to do anything black voters were telling them to do. This was all about neutralizing the political threat that black voters were posing with all of our demands. And so this year's RNC looks and feels more like a coronation for Trump, whereas the upcoming DNC convention is feeling more like a wake. But let's be honest here, Biden's been putting all kinds of self-inflicted political wounds on himself. Sure, having Trump get shot at dampens the ability of the Democrats to make attacks on him, but Biden's political momentum, if it can be called that, clearly stalled out a long time ago. And as for Trump, with all of the bad news that he's had for the last 3 years or so, he was long overdue for something to go his way. And if it wasn't this, it would have been something else. There's not going to be any October surprises to save Biden this time around. No Hollywood Access videos, no once-in-a-century pandemics to weaken the orange man. The only way to beat Trump this time around is to actually motivate the Democratic Party base. But the Democrats' goal is to bluff their way past the electorate with a whole bunch of doom speaking about how terrible a second Trump administration would be. But of course, the people are already looking at how bad the Biden years have been. And that being the case, they don't feel very enthused about more of that either. That goes triple for the black vote. This is what needs to be understood about this election cycle. If the orange man does prevail, the black vote ought to go ahead and take a bow about that and make it clear to everybody. When you don't offer the black vote anything, we're not going to worry about who becomes president. We've been out here weathering one storm after the next. And don't think just because we see the usual storm clouds on the horizon that that's supposed to make us nervous. Joe Biden said 4 years ago that he had black folks' backs. Instead, the only thing he did was find a place to put the knife. Here we are 4 years later, and he's looking around wondering where his black support went off to. Well, we went off to nurse the wounds from Joe Biden stabbing us in the back, and nobody's going to be voting for Donald Trump, and nobody cares about J.D. Vance. But what we do care about is making it very clear. We're establishing that elections are going to be transactional. And to establish that the cost of not doing business with the black vote is a lot higher than the Democrats thought it would be. Good day, and be one.
Only thing that I'm worried about, punch one of these pussy ass niggas in they mouth. Then they film and they'll upload it. Suckers do anything for that clout. They'll trick you out of your position if you ain't gained up and you ain't here watching out. Internet bloggers, internet gangsters, who the snitches? I can't tell. On the dead homies and enemies podcast, the only podcast that I know won't tell. But I ain't tripping, I just pay attention to my own little business and I get this mail. I'm in another state, making another plate. Big plat place on my state. A plush hotel, just counting mail. I do this shit and I do it well.